If you're dreaming about a wine trip to Italy, everyone talks about Tuscany, but after spending some time in Piedmont, I'm convinced it might actually be the better destination for serious wine lovers. Between the food, scenery, the wines, and some of the most fascinating grape varieties in the world, Piedmont offers an experience that every bit as memorable as Tuscany. And in many ways, it's even more authentic. By the way, I'm Hillary Zio, certified sommelier, two-time wine book author, and restaurant owner. And after 20 years in the wine industry and visiting over 50 countries, this channel is all about travel for wine lovers. So if that's you, subscribe below. When most people think of Italy, they imagine pizza, pasta, rolling Tuscan hills, but Piedmont feels completely different. So, located in northwestern Italy, near the French border, the region has a lot of strong French influences, both in the cuisine and the culture. In fact, a local dialect is still spoken that's genetically closer actually to French than Italian, and the food is centered around rich meats, cheeses, butter, truffles, and incredible wines. One of the things I loved most about Piedmont was how dramatic the landscape feels. The hills are so steep, just covered in vineyards, and often wrapped in morning fog. Millions of years ago, much of this land was underwater, and many wineries still display seashells and marine fossils that are found in their vineyards today. It's that constant reminder that the geology plays such a huge role in the wines you're drinking. The region is divided into several important wine growing areas, but the three most famous are Monferrato, Roero, and Langhe. Each one has its own personality, grape varieties, and wine style. So if you're planning a trip, I highly recommend exploring all three rather than just staying in one place. That's what I did, and it gave me a much deeper appreciation for the diversity of Piedmont as a whole. So I started in Monferrato, where I stayed at Tenuta Montemagno, and imagine just waking up on a hilltop surrounded by vineyards with an infinity pool overlooking the countryside. It was truly the most perfect introduction to Piedmont, and the winery itself still focuses heavily on organic farming and just innovative winemaking techniques, but they are respecting tradition as well. One of the biggest surprises for me was the Timorasso grape. Most visitors come to Piedmont thinking just about red wine, but Timorasso produces these powerful, age-worthy whites with incredible minerality and structure. The wine I tasted showed notes of melon, seashells, and honestly, it challenged everything people assume about northern Italian white wines. Another surprise was a sparkling Barbera. So most wine lovers are going to know Barbera as a red, but here I tasted this traditional method sparkling version that spent years aging on the lees. It was one of those experiences that reminds you how much there still is to discover in the wine world. And even after 20 years in the industry, Piedmont managed to surprise me. Next, I headed to Roero. So, this is an area that many travelers completely overlook. While Barolo gets most of the attention, Roero offers some of the best value and some of the most exciting white wines in the region. I stayed at Villa Tiboldi, which is a beautiful historic property surrounded by super steep vineyards that seem to just climb straight into the sky. Roero is known for Arnaise, the grape that deserves far more attention than it receives. 40 years ago, almost all of Roero was planted to red grapes. But today, Arnaise has really become one of the region's stars. The best examples combine citrus, florality, a lot of high acidity, some minerality, and it just makes them so incredibly food friendly. And that's right, the food in Roero was just as memorable as the wine. This is where I had tajarine for the first time, which is like a rich egg pasta, often served with white truffles shaved. So if you've never experienced truffle season in Piedmont, put it on your bucket list immediately. There are a few there are a few food experiences in the world that are going to compare to Langhe. It's home of Italy's most famous wines. This is Barolo, obviously Nebbiolo reigns supreme here. The landscape is so breathtaking and vineyards are just covered. For many wine lovers, this is the Piedmont that they've really dreamed about visiting for years. One thing I learned quickly is that there's far more to Langhe than Barolo. I spent time tasting Dolcetto, which is a grape that, really gets enough attention outside Italy. And depending on where it's grown, it can be so elegant, approachable, it can be powerful, and just really structured. It's often the wine that locals actually drink when they're waiting for the Barolo to age. So, of course, I also spent plenty of time tasting Nebbiolo at Josetta Safirio. I tasted multiple vintages of Barolo, and I was reminded why these wines are just so legendary. Nebbiolo combines high acid, high tannin, complexity, and they produce wines that can evolve for decades. It's one of the world's truly great wine grapes. One of my favorite experiences was visiting Gigi Rosso in the heart of Barolo country. So walking through the cellar and seeing just gigantic traditional botti style barrels gave me an appreciation for just how seriously Piedmont takes the winemaking traditions. Some of these barrels are decades old and just continue to be used because they allow the wine, not the oak, to be the star. Another fascinating stop was Casina Castle, where I learned about Uvellino, almost extinct grape variety. So the winery basically rescued this grape from disappearing forever, and now it produces one of the only examples in the world. These are the kinds of stories you encounter throughout Piedmont, right? You've got families preserving history one vineyard at a time. My final discovery was Nascetta, a rare white grape indigenous to Novello. Very few producers make it, and it almost disappeared entirely. But today it's making a comeback, producing aromatic whites with a little tropical fruit and a lot of complexity. It's another reminder that Piedmont still has plenty of hidden gems waiting to be discovered. So, should Piedmont be your next wine trip? If you love authentic food, world class wines, historic villages, and experiences that still feel genuinely connected to the local culture, then my answer is absolutely yes. And if you enjoy discovering wines like these, but you can't hop on a plane every month, join my wine club. So every quarter, I personally select 6 European wines that I actually pour behind my wine bar, and I ship them directly to your door. So it's always under 200, shipping included, and the link is going to be in the description below. I'll see you next time.